There is a golf course in Coyote Springs, Nevada. Jack Nicklaus designed it. It opened in 2008. It is still open today. Around it, nothing. No homes, no streets, no schools. Just desert. A scoreboard nobody reads. A parking lot that collects more tumbleweeds than Cadillacs. The developers spent over $200 million building infrastructure first. Roads, fiber optics, a flood control basin, a wastewater treatment plant, all of it, before a single permit for a house was approved. Then the Nevada Supreme Court answered the question they should have asked before the first shovel hit dirt. There wasn't enough water. 150,000 homes. Planned, funded, marketed. Zero built. But the golf course is gorgeous. Totally worth $200 million. There is a man in Pahrump, Nevada. He drilled his own well in 2019. Independent. Off-grid. No utility bill. That was the whole point. The state engineer published a projection the same year. More than 3,000 wells in that valley will fail by 2065. He is one of them. He doesn't know. Nobody told him. It wasn't in the listing. And in Laughlin, Nevada, a retiree watches the Colorado River from her back porch every single morning. $225,000. Riverview. Casino 2 minutes away. Her water system is 4.5 million gallons short of what Nevada law currently requires. No new home has been connected to that system since 2008. A sitting U.S. Congresswoman called it a severe local crisis on the floor of Congress. The river still looks beautiful from the porch. Nobody mentioned any of the rest of it. 3 stories, 3 cities, 3 people who had no idea what was running underneath the place they bought. Right now, across 13 Nevada cities, the same math is running. Just quieter, just slower, just underground. Half of Nevada's 256 groundwater basins are already over-appropriated. More water rights on paper than the ground can actually deliver. A quarter of those basins are being actively overpumped. Today, while you watch this, Nevada is the driest state in the nation, getting drier every year since 2002. And the Colorado River, the lifeline for 90% of southern Nevada, had its management agreements expire in 2026. 7 states, still unable to agree on what comes next. None of that made it into the brochure. Funny how that keeps not making it into the brochure. 13 cities. Real numbers. Zero guessing. Some of these warnings came from sitting U.S. Congresswomen, from state engineers, from the actual people whose job is to keep the water running. Let's go. Number 13. Winnemucca, Nevada. The mining boom gave it a pulse. The aquifer is running the clock. Nobody has updated the clock since Nixon. Picture a ranch hand in Winnemucca. He drills a new well in spring. Water comes up fine, always has. He doesn't know the numbers behind that well were calculated before he was born. You come off I-80 into the high desert and Winnemucca hits like a time capsule. Ranching families, mining crews, the kind of town where everyone knows your truck. Median home, $220,000. Population, 8,000. Real jobs, real wages. No Vegas glitter, no Vegas problems. Or so the listing implies. Now here's the part that changes the weight of all of it. Winnemucca sits in Humboldt County, where groundwater isn't part of the system. It is the system. No Colorado River, no backup reservoir, no second pipeline coming over the mountain. Just whatever is still underground. And Nevada is still managing parts of that groundwater using estimates developed 50 to 70 years ago. Before the current mining expansion, before the population growth, before most of these homes even existed. People are buying property today using water estimates from the Nixon administration. The state flagged the problem themselves. Officially, they raised major concerns about the accuracy of groundwater availability. The approvals kept coming anyway. The wells kept going in anyway. Nearly 40% of wells studied statewide are already declining. And in Winnemucca, there is no backup plan if the estimates are wrong. Think about this. Thursday afternoon, closing table. You sign, you shake hands, you get the keys. Nobody mentions the groundwater estimates are older than the moon landing. Nobody mentions the state already questioned whether the numbers are accurate. The inspection confirms water comes out of the tap today. It does not confirm how long that stays true. That's Winnemucca. where the water still runs. And nobody is completely sure the numbers underneath it ever worked in the first place. But the next one? Nevada's state engineer stopped pretending the math still worked and issued an order the state had never seen before. Number 12. Pahrump, Nevada. 3 times more water claimed than exists. The county already published when the wells start failing. The drilling kept going anyway. An hour outside Las Vegas. Mountain views. Space. Quiet. Affordable. Median home, $305,000. Population around 39,000. Tens of thousands of private wells. People moved to Pahrump for one reason: independence. Your own land, your own water, no landlord, no utility company, no one telling you what to do. Here's the problem. Nevada's state engineer officially described the groundwater basin underneath Pahrump as severely overappropriated. 20,000 acre-feet can be sustainably pumped each year. More than 59,000 acre-feet of water rights have already been issued. Nearly 3 times more water claimed than exists. That is not a future problem. That is the current math. And then the county published something even worse. More than 400 wells projected to fail by 2035. More than 3,000 by 2065. Not a climate estimate. Not an activist report. The county water district about their own valley. Then Nevada did something it had never done before. The state engineer ordered that new residential wells could no longer be drilled unless buyers first purchased existing water rights. No precedent. No playbook. The state effectively admitted the basin was running out of room, and the land already showed the damage first. Mance Spring, the only natural habitat of the Pahrump poolfish, dried up from groundwater overpumping. The fish were relocated. The spring never came back. Think about this. You moved to Pahrump because you want freedom, your own well, your own water, your own land. You drill. Water comes up. You think the system works. You don't know the county already projected thousands of wells could fail. You don't know the aquifer already has nearly 3 times more claims than water. You only know your well works today. That's Pahrump, where independence still sells. Even after the state published the date the water starts running out. Number 11. Ely, Nevada. The warning is visible from the road. Most buyers drive past it without realizing the landscape is already reacting. A family moves to Ely for the quiet. $185,000 for a house with a yard and a mountain view. The cheapest city on this list. They drive past a grove of dying juniper trees on the way to the grocery store 3 times a week. They think it's drought, or beetles, or just what trees look like out here. They don't realize the trees are measuring groundwater. Ely sits in one of the most remote counties in America, population just over 4,000. Old mining town, quiet streets, mountains in every direction. And then there are the trees. Outside Ely, near Bosawabi, researchers documented entire groves of Rocky Mountain junipers dying off in 2024. Not wildfire, not disease, groundwater decline. Water pulled from the basin faster than parts of the landscape could recover. One researcher described the dying grove as a canary in the coal mine. And Nevada already has the numbers to back that warning up. The Nature Conservancy found that roughly 40% of Nevada's springs face high risk of reduced flows. 32% of groundwater-dependent streams face the same risk. The trees are not the problem. The trees are the signal. And signals show up before systems fail. First, the springs shrink. Then the roots lose access to water. Then the trees die. The wells usually come later. Think about this. You buy the house because it's quiet, cheap, beautiful. Every week you drive past the same grove turning a little more brown. Nobody tells you the landscape itself is already reacting to groundwater stress underneath the valley. The warning has been sitting beside the highway the entire time. Most buyers just don't know how to read it. That's Ely, where the first sign the system is under pressure is not the faucet. It's the landscape. But the next one? No dying trees. Just a legal document written in 1902 that already decided where your well stands in line. Number 10. Fallon, Nevada. The farms drink first. The town gets what's left. That order was finalized in 1902. Your mortgage didn't change a word of it. Churchill County, green fields, irrigation canals, a naval air station with real federal wages anchoring the whole thing. Median home, $290,000. Stable. Looks like the sensible Nevada option. And that is exactly why Fallon is dangerous. It does not look fragile. It looks established. Western water law runs on one principle. Oldest rights get served first. Full stop. When the valley tightens, the senior rights drink. The junior rights wait. No exceptions, no workarounds. The agricultural users here hold rights established long before most of these homes were surveyed. The farms were in line first. The town came later. Your house came much later. By law, not by accident, by law. Now here's where it gets harder. The Newlands Project, one of the oldest federal irrigation projects in American history, is under active legal pressure from environmental mandates protecting the Truckee River and Pyramid Lake. The farms drink first. The environmental mandates come second. The residential wells get what's left after that. That's not a water system. That's a waiting line. And the residential wells had no seat at the table when that order was set. Nobody asked Fallon. That meeting happened in 1902. Your 2024 mortgage was not invited. Think about this. You inspect the house. The well runs clean. Good flow rate. Strong pressure. The inspector gives it a thumbs up. The inspector checks whether water comes out today. He does not check where you stand in line when the valley runs short. Nobody mentions where your water sits in the queue. Nobody mentions that in a dry year, residential wells are at the back of a line drawn before this street had a name. Those are different documents, different offices. That never comes up at a closing table. That's Fallon, where the tap can pass inspection and still be last in line. But the next one? No ancient law, just one river, pipes that don't meet current code, and a congresswoman who went to Washington and said the word crisis out loud. Number 9. Laughlin, Nevada. The Riverview still sells. The water system behind it has been frozen since 2008. Southern tip of Nevada. Casinos, Colorado river views, retirees with boats and lawn chairs. Laughlin looks like the low-key version of everything Las Vegas promises. Median home, $225,000. Affordable, quiet, riverfront. That is the pitch. Here's the truth about Laughlin's water. It comes from one place, one river. Colorado. No groundwater buffer, no backup supply, no plan B. Just the river. And that same river is already under federal shortage declarations. The long-term management agreement expired in 2026. 7 states, no replacement signed. That's already bad. But Laughlin's bigger problem is not the river. It's the system connected to it. Laughlin's water storage system is 4.5 million gallons short of what Nevada law currently requires. The utility said it directly. They cannot approve new significant connections until that gap is filled. 4 residential connections approved since 2008. 4. In nearly 20 years. That is not slow growth. That is a freeze with a river view. The fix cost $22 million. As of mid-2024, nobody had located the money. A sitting U.S. Congresswoman stood before Congress and called it a severe local crisis. She said crisis. In Congress. About a $225,000 Nevada retirement town. The listings still say stunning water views. They just leave out the part where the system behind the view cannot grow. Think about this. You retire to Laughlin. Affordable house. River out the back. Casino 2 minutes away. The tap works every morning. Everything feels simple. Then you try to sell. The buyer asks about the storage deficit. The 4 connections since 2008. The $22 million fix. The river agreement with no replacement. You don't have answers. Because nobody asked those questions when you bought it. That's Laughlin, where the river still looks beautiful, and the water system has been stuck in place for almost 20 years. Number 8. Elko, Nevada. The mine next door has older water rights than your street, and the open house still smells like fresh paint. Picture the open house in Elko. New listing, good bones, 3-car garage, mountain views off the back porch. The agent mentions the Carlin Trend, one of the richest gold corridors on the planet. Real wages, real employment, real economy. Median home, $330,000. Population, around 20,000. Sounds like the responsible Nevada buy. Until you ask about the water. Actually, nobody asks about the water. That's the problem. Here's what's underneath, literally. Mining operations in the Elko area hold senior water rights, in many cases predating the town itself, which means when water gets tight, the mines drink first, not eventually, first. The neighborhoods wait. That is not a possibility. That is the current legal structure, and most buyers never hear that sentence before closing. You buy the house because the mine brought stability. Then you find out the same mine stands ahead of the neighborhood for water. Both of those things are true at the same time. Now here's what makes it worse. Nevada's water budget estimates for many basins are 50 to 70 years old, built for the early 1970s, before the current mining expansion, before the population growth, before any of the homes being sold today existed. The state has flagged 20% of Nevada's groundwater basins as currently overpumped. For Elko's basin, the real ceiling hasn't been confirmed with current data. And in Elko, nobody can say with certainty where the real limit actually is. Nobody knows. And nobody at the open house is going to tell you that. At the open house, the agent walks you through the kitchen. New appliances, good commute, stable jobs, sensible investment. All of that is true. What she doesn't say, the mine has older water rights than your street. The estimates managing this aquifer are from a different century. Nobody lied. Nobody at that open house knew. The open house still looks perfect. The water math underneath it does not. The distinction stops mattering the day the well drops below the casing. That's Elko, where the economy depends on the same industry standing first in line for the water. Number 7. North Las Vegas, Nevada. 40% of the valley runs through one aging pipeline. The ground has already started sinking. The building kept going anyway. North Las Vegas, lower price, same commute. The affordable entry into the Las Vegas market. Median home, $380,000. Population, over 280,000. New master plan communities going up as fast as permits clear. That is exactly what makes this place feel safe. Now watch this. In early 2026, Congress authorized a new 40-mile pipeline capable of moving 375 million gallons per day. The reason? 40% of Las Vegas Valley residents and businesses currently depend on a single aging pipeline. One pipeline for almost half the valley. Not backup infrastructure, current infrastructure. And then the ground underneath North Las Vegas started reacting. North Las Vegas became the first area in the valley where groundwater decline caused the land itself to sink. Subsidence. The actual surface dropping. Windsor Park was hit hardest, so severe that entire sections had to be relocated. Some residents never left. The ground never fully recovered. And here's the part that matters now. Congress approved the replacement pipeline the same year the old one got another year older. Construction takes years. The existing system carries the load today. Meanwhile, new neighborhoods keep going up, new families keep signing, and the entire valley is still tied to a Colorado River system operating under federal shortage declarations with no long-term post-2026 agreement in place. Think about this. You buy in North Las Vegas because it's cheaper than Henderson. Same jobs, same city, lower mortgage. You move into a brand new neighborhood, fresh paint, clean sidewalks, new appliances. Everything feels modern. You don't know nearly half the valley still depends on one aging pipe. You don't know the ground nearby has already sunk badly enough to relocate residents. You don't know the long-term river agreement behind the entire system already expired. The disclosure form covered the appliances. It did not mention the ground has been moving since the Reagan administration. That's North Las Vegas, where the infrastructure replacement was approved only after the infrastructure was already old enough to become the story. Number 6. Sparks, Nevada. The dry year safety net has more claims than water. The snowpack hit 21% of normal. 150 companies moved in. The river allocation didn't move at all. Sparks is Reno's eastern neighbor. Shared river, shared pipes, shared future. Median home, $420,000. Population 110,000, growing. You moved to Sparks because Reno got too expensive. Same jobs, same mountains, smaller mortgage. It feels like the smart version of Reno. Here is what Sparks' own water authority published in their 2025 to 2045 Water Resource Plan. Normal year, 80 to 85% of supply from the Truckee River. Dry year drops to 60%. The remaining 40%, groundwater. Here's where it stops making sense. That groundwater, the dry year emergency buffer, already has more legal claims against it than can be sustainably filled. The emergency fund is overdrawn before the emergency starts. And then 2025 ran a test nobody scheduled. Sierra Nevada snowpack, 21% of normal. Record March heat, premature melt. The snow melted too early to properly recharge the system. The water ran fast, ran early, refilled almost nothing. The backup system got stress tested before the real emergency even arrived. Meanwhile, 9 miles east, the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center kept growing. Tesla's Gigafactory, Google data centers, 150-plus companies. Industrial-scale water demand entering the same system at the exact moment the margin for error started shrinking. Per capita looks fine. The aquifer doesn't care about per capita. Think about this. You buy in Sparks because Reno pricing pushed you east. Smart on paper. Same access, lower cost. You don't know the snowpack was at 21% the year before you signed. You don't know the emergency reserve has more claims than water. You don't know the valley already started leaning on its backup supply earlier than planners expected. The water runs fine in spring. The margin protecting it just isn't what it used to be. That's Sparks, where the backup plan started looking shaky before the real emergency even arrived. Stop. From here, these are not outdated estimates or background concerns. Courts have issued rulings. State engineers have issued orders that have never been issued before. A sitting U.S. Congresswoman went to Congress and said the word crisis. Each city on this list fails differently. The cause is the same in every single one. And it lands inside real homes, bought with real money, by people who checked every box. Because the danger in Nevada is not that the water shuts off tomorrow. It's that entire cities are already operating closer to the edge than most buyers realize. If you want the numbers before the paperwork gets signed, subscribe now. And almost none of that shows up during closing. Because number one is the city every Nevada buyer assumes is the safest bet. The conservation awards, the recycled water system, the infrastructure plan. And the math underneath it was certified as insufficient before you started shopping. Now we get into the cities most people assume are completely safe. They aren't. Number 5. Henderson, Nevada. Lake Mead lost 160 feet. Henderson kept building like nothing happened. Henderson is what happens when a master-planned suburb looks almost too perfect. Wide streets, ranked schools, palm trees trimmed on schedule. Lake Las Vegas glittering behind gated neighborhoods. Median home, $530,000. Everything about this city feels controlled. That's the illusion. Because underneath Henderson sits the exact same water system now failing across the rest of southern Nevada. Lake Mead has dropped 160 feet since 2000. The white ring around the lake is visible from space. And 90% of southern Nevada's water still comes from that shrinking reservoir. The agreement governing that water was written in 1922, during one of the wettest periods in Colorado River history. The river no longer produces what the system promised. But Henderson kept growing anyway. And then AI arrived. Google's Henderson data center used roughly 352 million gallons of water in 2024 alone. One building, 1 year. At the exact moment the reservoir supplying the city fell near 1/3 capacity. Now here's what makes Henderson different. Southern Nevada actually became one of the most aggressive water conservation systems in America. Per capita water use dropped dramatically, even while hundreds of thousands of people moved in. The city did almost everything right. And the pressure still kept building. Because AI doesn't care how efficient your sprinklers are. Data centers consume water at industrial scale. And they are plugging directly into the same desert system already under federal shortage declarations. Think about this. Saturday afternoon, Henderson, new house, quiet neighborhood, good schools. Everything looks permanent. You don't know the lake behind the city has already lost 160 feet. You don't know one building used hundreds of millions of gallons last year. You don't know the agreement governing this entire river system expired in 2026 without a replacement. The fountains still run. The grass still looks green. The strain underneath it does not. That's Henderson, where the safest-looking city in Nevada is still running on the same shrinking reservoir as Las Vegas. Number 4. Reno, Nevada. Reno doubled the growth projections. The backup water was already overpromised before the expansion even started. Reno, the biggest small city with the most ambition in the American West. Tech, university, art scene, Tahoe 40 minutes away. The Nevada city people move to because it feels smarter than Las Vegas. Median home, $500,000. Population, 280,000 today, projected to 602,000 by 2044. Reno isn't slowing down. That's the whole point. The city keeps growing. The margin underneath it doesn't. Here's what Reno's own water authority published in their 2025 to 2045 Water Resource Plan. Normal year, 80 to 85% of supply from the Truckee River. Dry year drops to 60%. The remaining 40% groundwater. Here's the strange part. That groundwater, the 40% dry year reserve, already has more legal claims against it than it can sustainably fill. Former Nevada State Engineer Adam Sullivan said it directly. About half of Nevada's 256 groundwater basins are over-appropriated. The backup supply already has more promises than water. And then 2025 stress-tested the entire system. Record March heat. The snowpack melted early. The system needed slow snowmelt. Instead, it got heat. The Truckee ran fast, ran low, refilled almost nothing. The emergency scenario stopped being theoretical. It already happened once. Now add the industrial math. Tesla's gigafactory east of town. AI data centers. 150-plus companies at the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. Reno isn't just adding residents anymore. It's adding industrial-scale demand on top of a backup supply already under pressure. None of it is visible in the per capita figure that still looks fine on paper. Washoe County voters passed Question 3 in 2008, a law requiring growth to match available water. The legal checkbook exists. The concern now is whether the water underneath Reno still matches the assumptions written into that law. Think about this. Tuesday morning, Reno, job offer on the table, good tech role, mountains on weekends. You sign in spring 2026. The river is flowing. The neighborhoods look healthy. Everything feels stable. You don't know the snowpack collapsed the year before you arrived. You don't know the backup supply already has more legal claims than it can support. You don't know industrial-scale demand kept moving into the exact same system while all of this was happening. The Truckee still flows past the breweries downtown. The stress underneath it is getting harder to hide. That's Reno, where one of the fastest-growing cities in the American West is now depending on backup water that was already overpromised before the boom fully arrived. But the next one? The water didn't just get overclaimed, it left. Las Vegas noticed Mesquite's aquifer first. The residents arrived later. Number 3. Mesquite, Nevada. Las Vegas noticed Mesquite's aquifer before the buyers did. By the time the home sold, the water story had already moved on. Mesquite, where the Utah border meets Nevada on the Virgin River. Golf courses, retirees, Red Rock Canyon views. An hour from Las Vegas. None of the noise. Median home, $370,000. Growing, quiet, peaceful. That is what people think they are buying. Quiet, space, distance from Las Vegas. Here's what those buyers walked into. The Virgin Valley sits on a large aquifer. Las Vegas noticed it years ago. The Southern Nevada Water Authority actively explored piping Mesquite's water south to supplement its shrinking Colorado River supply. Las Vegas was at the table. Most buyers did not even know there was a table. Now here's where it gets strange. By the time most current homeowners arrived, the water rights in the valley were already being transferred. Landowners had leased or sold most of their rights to SNWA or the Virgin Valley Water District. The fields that used to be green aren't green anymore. The water moved before the people did. Las Vegas got the water. Mesquite got the golf courses and the Red Rock views, which sounds like a fine trade, until the Virgin Valley Water District went to court. The Nevada Supreme Court ruled on water priority in the basin. Mesquite's water district went from senior rights holder to junior. Senior means you get water when supplies drop. Junior means you wait. One court ruling moved Mesquite backward in line. Development kept going. The listings didn't mention the change. Think about this. You bought in Mesquite for the views, the golf, the quiet, and the price. An hour from everything without an hour's worth of noise. You didn't know Las Vegas had been eyeing this aquifer before your moving truck arrived. You didn't know the water rights had already been moving around behind the scenes. You didn't know a court ruling changed where Mesquite stood in line. The golf course is still green. The Virgin River still runs nearby. But the control over the water underneath Mesquite is not as simple as the view makes it look. That's Mesquite, where people bought distance from Las Vegas after Las Vegas had already noticed the water. But the next two? This is where the math stops being invisible. There is a ring of bleached limestone around the lake that keeps the valley alive. 160 feet tall. You can see it from the freeway. People pull over and photograph it. Then they drive to the open house. Number 2. Las Vegas, Nevada. The lake dropped 160 feet. The city kept building anyway. There is a white ring around Lake Mead, bleached limestone, 160 feet tall. That is how far the water line has fallen since the year 2000. You can see it from the freeway. People pull over and photograph it. Then they drive to the open house. Las Vegas, 5th largest metro in America, 2.3 million people. 90% of their water comes from that lake. The Las Vegas Valley Water District published this on their own homepage. Not a study, not an outside report, their own homepage. The Las Vegas Valley gets about 90% of its water from the Colorado River, which is facing the worst drought in the river basin's recorded history. They wrote it themselves. Honestly, openly, just not in the listing. The listing had granite counters and a smart thermostat. Priorities. Here is what the Bureau of Reclamation's own technical document shows. If Lake Mead drops below 895 feet, water physically cannot flow through Hoover Dam. Not a climate projection, not a worst-case scenario, a physical engineering limit. Printed in a federal document anyone can read. Now here's the part that makes Las Vegas so strange. The city actually did almost everything right. Nevada cut per capita water consumption by 58% since 2002. 61 billion fewer gallons used in 2024 than in 2002, all while adding 876,000 residents. One of the most aggressive conservation programs anywhere in America. And it still may not be enough. Because the problem is no longer just Las Vegas, it's the river itself. The 7-state management agreement governing the Colorado River expired in 2026. No replacement deal signed. Federal officials warned mandatory cuts could be imposed. 7 states. 1 river. No agreement. And while all of this is happening, another 25,000 acres of Las Vegas Valley land is still being lined up for development. More residents. More neighborhoods. More data centers. Same river. Smaller lake. Think about this. New construction. Great finishes. Top-ranked school district. The agent opens the kitchen cabinets, shows you the storage space. You turn on the tap. Water comes out. Nothing about the house feels temporary. You don't know the agreement governing that tap expired this year with no replacement. You don't know the lake behind the city has dropped 160 feet. You don't know the failure threshold is already sitting in a federal engineering document. The water still runs. The negotiations underneath it do not look stable. That's Las Vegas, the city that convinced the desert it could be permanent. Number 1. Coyote Springs, Nevada. $200 million in, 1 golf course out, 150,000 homes planned, 0 built. The street signs still stand at an unpaved intersection, going nowhere. There is a golf course in Coyote Springs, Nevada. Jack Nicklaus designed it. Alone in the desert, 50 miles north of Las Vegas on US 93. 2 temporary street signs mark an unpaved intersection, CS Parkway and F Street. They have stood there since 2008. going nowhere. Which is fitting, because that is exactly where the development went. The vision was enormous. 150,000 homes, 10 golf courses, casinos, schools, shops, a real city, built from scratch in the Nevada desert. Over $200 million went in before one home was permitted. Roads, flood control, fiber optics, a detention basin, a wastewater treatment plant, the golf course. The developer was that certain about the future. Water available for the entire lower White River flow system, 8,000 acre-feet. Water rights claimed by all parties in the basin, 300,000 acre-feet. 37 times more water on paper than existed in the ground. And here's where it completely falls apart. Nobody knew the groundwater basins were connected underground. Not the developer, not the state regulators. Not until pump tests revealed that pulling water from Coyote Springs drained springs miles away. Springs feeding the Muddy River, springs supporting the Moapa dace, an endangered fish that exists nowhere else on the planet. The Nevada Supreme Court ruled, you cannot pump water that dries up a river and kills a protected species. Full stop. The developer sued, still suing. The golf course waits. The street signs stand. Going nowhere. And here is the one sentence that explains every city on this list. The state engineer said it plainly. Paper water does not equal wet water. That is the entire story of Nevada real estate in the desert. Over-appropriated aquifers, senior rights ahead of residential rights, development that moved faster than anyone confirmed what was underneath. Coyote Springs is not an outlier. It is the version where the math ran out in public, visibly, expensively, all at once. In every other city on this list, that same math is running, quieter, slower, underground. Think about this. You buy a home in Nevada, any city, any price point. The tap works. The neighborhood looks fine. The closing documents are clean. The state engineer's report was never in those documents. It never is. And somewhere underneath the address you just signed for, the same calculation that stopped 150,000 homes from being built is still running its numbers. It does not care about your mortgage. It does not care about your closing date. It cares about one thing only. How much water is actually there? That's Coyote Springs. That's number one. That's Nevada. Would you tell someone not to buy there? Honestly.